Thank you. Once again, welcome Chief Dan Sullivan. As the former Ward 2 counselor, I think Ward 2's got kind of a little heritage now of fire chiefs with we had former Chief Carmody, former Chief Archer, and now Chief Sullivan. So welcome, and the Chief's going to give an overview of the department, some of the things that are going on, facilities, staffing, fire alarm, and all. So it's all yours.
Sure. All right, yeah, so just to kind of start off where we're at right now. So we're budgeted for 180 firefighters. Right now, we're in the process of looking for 2 new firefighters. We've sent out cards. We've received back for 4 of them. So with civil service, so we're certainly through civil service, we're required to send out cards to double the amount that we need, and then we add 1. So we sent out cards to 5 people. We received back 4. So we're about 2 or 3 weeks away from the interview process for those 2. We also have 7 recruits right now that are in the fire academy. They just started their 3rd week in the fire academy. I've gotten some reports out there that they're doing very well. Like Ryan said, I also teach at the fire academy. However, now a little busy, during the week, so I don't teach there as much anymore. So some of the things we're thinking about doing with staffing. The issue is when we hire people, it takes at least a month or more for background checks. It takes months to get them in the door, and then they have to go to the academy for 10 weeks. So, there's an extended time there where we have openings. And so once they start, we're doing an in-house training of 4 to 5 weeks before they go to the academy. We're just duplicating, just using a lot of money. So I think what we're going to do, at least for these 2 as a trial, is not start them until a week or 2 before the academy, give them a little bit of refresher, send them to the academy, and then when they come back, there's some other things that we're going to have to show them, how to use the stretchers and some of the specific things for Lynn. And then we're in talks about maybe starting the hiring process early. So that would take some trust between us and the city to figure out who's potentially going to be retiring, and then hopefully we can get them in the door as the openings occur. So I said we're budgeted for 180 firefighters. Part of that number is we need 35 people to operate all of our apparatus every day, every shift. So we are budgeted for 41 per shift. So we have 6 extras per day. Quite often we're running below, not below staffing. Quite often we need overtime because we're running so tight. The remaining people are in our staff positions. So we have EMS, emergency management, so medical services, emergency management, maintenance, training, fire alarm, I think I said, and fire prevention. So our fire prevention staff, which many of you have met, many of you know, they're doing a great job. We're out there now. We're able to keep up with the inspections. If anyone has any issues, please go to them. They're more than willing to help out with any of your needs. Our EMS division is on the forefront of where we'd like to go as a department. So if you remember, maybe a year ago, the ambulance services were struggling with staffing, and we were feeling the brunt of that. So we were having some delayed responses with the ambulances. Somewhere like, so in Lynn, a normal response, we'll get an ambulance there in a few minutes, no more than 10 minutes. Last year, we had a few responses that were upwards of 50 minutes for an ambulance to show up. So some of the things we can do to relieve the stress on the EMS system is a community paramedicine program. So what the community paramedicine program would do is it gets out to the elderly and we'll check their medications to make sure that there's no contraindications. We get out with the homeless population and make sure that they have all their whatever their needs are. You know, maybe do blood pressure checks, you know, CPR classes. I don't want to say the issue, but the parallel to that is what the Lynn police are doing, and they're doing a great job with their behavioral health. So we kind of thought of this might be a duplication of efforts within the city. So the next level up from the community paramedicine program is mobile integrated health. What that does is it gets doctors and PAs interacting with the patients on scene. So our paramedics would go out there, they would begin the treatment, interact with the doctor, and then be able to treat the people where they're at and reduce some of the strain on the EMS system. So that's one of the initiatives our EMS division is working towards. Our maintenance division, so some of you may know, we have 4 new fire engines on order. Like most of the country, the delays in manufacturing have impacted us. These engines were supposed to be here last fall. They're still not here. I just received an email yesterday that ironically axles were the problem, right? They couldn't get axles for these pieces. So the axles are in. We'll have a delivery date in the next 2 or 3 weeks from what I'm hearing. So I would say by spring, we should have 2 of the 4 engines. Our backup ladder, so the engines are what we use to spray the water, to put the fires out. Our ladders are the ones that would make holes in the roof, throw ground ladders for safety, do search for any citizens. And they basically have all the high-tech tools that we would need on some of these more complicated incidents. Well, our spare ladder is 20 years old. So we do have a capital request, which the city appears supportive of. So we'll know in the next few weeks where that stands. We're in the budget process right now. So we've had our internal talks and we've begun our talks with the city on next year's budget. Our one of the interesting programs that we run, we were just talking before we started, is our drone program. So drones started taking off, at least in public safety, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Lieutenant Paul Rickey is our fire alarm officer, but he also runs our drone program. So the drone that we have was funded by a grant a few years ago. High level, it has thermal imaging capabilities, night vision capabilities, and complicated mapping capabilities. So we're able to map Lynn Woods, the topography, the trail systems, which would really help out. You know, as you know, last year we had one of the largest wildfires in Massachusetts history. Those 3 fires, I'm kind of segueing over into wildfires. Let me stay on the drone program for a second. So the drone, we can certainly partner up with the police for lost citizens, you know, crowd control, traffic management, but we can also partner with the business community as well. So Lynn Water and Sewer has used it to inspect their rooftops, inspect their tanks that they have, and the reservoirs, you know, up on Parkland Ave. So yeah, that drone, the drone is, we've actually gone out to other communities for some of their wildfires. And if you remember, I think it was last year up in Newburyport, there was a major explosion. Our drone was up there checking for structural integrity. And it wasn't our drone, but a drone from another community actually flew inside the building and found the patient, or the deceased, in the building. So our fire alarm office is down at Wayne Alarm Building. We're looking to completely revamp, get all new equipment for that, and we're looking for a home to make it a more permanent site for fire alarm. So stand by with that one. Maintenance has been an issue like everywhere. So I know we're in talks with the city on trying to locate a mechanic that will be specific to fire engines. We have complicated systems for the pumps, for the electronics, for the aerial ladders, the hydraulics. So there is some specialized training that they would need. So we're looking to do something like that. Some of the programs that we've done and we're continuing to do are in the summertime, we do a youth program. So last year we partnered with Lynn Public Schools. We were able to get 13 students. One of the students was a mentally handicapped student. So Lynn Schools got us a teacher. That teacher stayed with us all summer during the program. These students learned about fire safety, public safety. They learned to throw ground ladders, wear all of our turnout gear, drag hose. We simulated some fires. We had an acquired building over on Blossom Street, I think. One of the streets.
What about board members volunteer that helps Jim Connors?
Jim, okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim. Yeah. Great time for the kids. Great program. And at the end of the program, 2 of them received a sponsorship or scholarship for EMT class. So thank you to Cataldo Ambulance for that as well. We're doing the Family Day in early June. Many of you have already talked about coming up there and being part of that. We do that with the Lynn Police. It's a good day for all the families to come up. It's good exposure for all of you. Many of you will set up tables and just get a good flow of foot traffic through there. That's at the entrance to Great Woods Road, up at the Woods area. What else? Got a lot going on. Stations, fire stations. So Fayette Street Fire Station is in the early stages of redesign. So a few years ago, the city contracted with a design company. They went through, they found out improvements that were needed. That was tabled because of COVID for a few years. We spoke a few months ago about bringing that back up. Right now, the city has already approved money, so it's back at the engineering stage, just getting those designs approved. The thing with buildings is inspectional services. They're the ones that oversee the design. So we're just part of that. We have a voice, but they're truly the ones that could answer all of those detailed questions. We hear that the repairs should start this fall. We're almost positive that we're going to be using the Porter Street lot for a temporary structure for the fire trucks, and we'll get some trailers for the staffing. So the temporary structure is similar to the ones that are being used over in Linfield. I know Lexington's been using one for a long time. It's basically just a canvas structure supported by metal webbing, scaffolding that would house, both of our fire trucks. And then, like I said, they're not just a tent. There's structures in there that will be able to bring in our Plime Event system from Fayette Street. So the Plime Event system will keep our firefighters safe. It exhausts all the diesel exhaust out of the station. We're able to put in communication systems. There's already fiber over in that area to support that. So what about the future? So we know that there's a lot of development that's going on throughout the city. We're in the initial discussions about figuring out how to best serve the citizens 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So right now, again, this is just initial talks, but about getting a consulting firm to come in and just do an assessment of our current needs and our future needs, and where we should have our stations located. Some of our stations are over 200 years old. And the people, the community has done a really good job of maintaining those over the years, but at the end of the day, they're still, some of them are a couple hundred years old. Wildfires. Okay, so yeah, so the state fire warden is now using Lynn in their training throughout the state. So last year we had some wildfires that were going right over there, Apple Hill, right along over behind the old Union Hospital. So we received the call that there was a fire up in the woods. It was a Friday afternoon, and so I was listening on the radio. I got a call from our acting deputy at the time that said, hey, he had just heard that there was a second fire up there. So I started heading in that direction. When I got there, there was fire coming up the hill behind the house. So we were able to set up apparatus along the ridge there. It was probably an hour and a half of aggressive firefighting. Also educating the public to use leaf blowers, lawn sprinklers to keep or to create a barrier for the fire as it was coming up the ridge there. So we were able to save, on the news, I had said we saved about 20 houses. I went to one of the trainings from the state fire warden, and he said it was 65 houses that we saved. So that was from aggressive firefighting that day. The next day, we had a small fire up near Stone Tower. If you're familiar with the woods, that's in the interior of the woods, and it burned up the hill towards the tower. So we didn't need as many people there because there was no life threatens, there was no structures aside from Stone Tower, and that area had burned the year before, so there wasn't as much to burn, but it did pique our interest. How come there's a second fire not close enough that an ember could blow over there and start a second fire? So I think it was a day or two later, we had a third fire, and that third fire was down along the reservoir, down off of Walnut Street, heading towards Saugus. That fire was the largest of the three, but because of local knowledge of the woods, we were able to contain that fire with 3 people. So the first day fire, we had everyone in Lynn and some mutual aid companies there. So we had probably 50, 60 people that were protecting those houses. The largest of the 3 fires we contained with 3 because we had water, we had fire roads, and as long as we stopped it at one of the main trails, it wouldn't get into Saugus. So we've been doing some aggressive training already, continuing into the spring to bring that knowledge to the entire department. So there's a few of us, like Ryan had said, that have taken some national level classes. So in Lynn, we don't really have woods fires all that often. It's been probably 15, 20 years since Lynn Woods had caught fire. So a lot of the brush has accumulated. The dangers have increased along the ridge. So we're talking about some public education for this spring. So, you know, it's common along there to take your lawn clippings or your leaves and just throw them out in the woods. You think that's where they belong. The reality is we're creating, you know, we're adding to the fuel load in those areas. So, so public education will help, I think, help reduce the risk up in that area for this coming spring. The ironic thing is with wildfires, to touch on that, is the woods needs it. There are certain plants and animals that if there is no fire, those plants can't regerminate and the animals don't come back. So they're starting to see a lot more deer in the area. So after those fires, the little saplings that are coming up feed the deer. The beavers up there, you know, are starting to almost create problems up there. There's a beaver dam up there, which the ranger has had to create some bridges to get through some of the area. So very interesting, you know, with the wildfire danger here in Lynn. I think that might be it. How about questions?
Chief, with the addition of the 2 light project up on Linfield Street,
Yep.
you know, the old couple of over 55 developments up there. As folks get older, they tend to be, you know, falls and, you know, and when the department has to respond to those fall calls and go all the way from Broadway up to, you know, where the former Union Hospital site is, and, you know, is there any plans to maybe put somebody at, what's it require, an engine to handle those calls up in the Linfield Street?
Yeah, so, you know, as we, you know, continue the talks, you know, there's a need for the whole community, right? So we're talking, you know, maybe we've been in some initial talks about a trialing a BLS ambulance, you know, which would not only improve access to the citizens, but it may bring in some income for the city as well. So we're running the numbers on that. As for, you know, the different, you know, developments, I think that's where we bring in the consultants and find out where our, you know, we can help the citizens the best. So if you remember last year, we acquired some new software for the department. That software has the ability to generate what we call as heat maps. So every time an incident happens, it puts a small little dot at that location. The more times you go to that location or a certain area, it blossoms like a flower. So we can easily just take a look at where all of our current incidents are happening. Where I think a few months out from importing all the data from our prior software, so we can get a 10-year window of where our local needs, I mean, our local incidents are happening.
Any other questions?
Yes, I got a quick one.
Sure.
I don't know if you mentioned this as part of the education program, but I remember years ago, I worked for a much larger real estate company, about 40 people or so. So they would have them come once or twice a year and they would do the chokes, you know, injuries, falling, getting, you know, their bicycle, hitting their car, you know, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great program. And now they have a push, starting just a few years ago with the choke hazards, with those things with a small child.
Mm-hmm.
It's the child is too small or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But there's a lot of stuff in your business. But I thought this thing with the public was great.
Yeah, so specific to the wildfires, California is using what they call Firewise. So Firewise will, they'll come out with like the door hangers, so if we can't knock on doors or do, social media pushes, we can put door hanger pamphlets on the doors for that specific, right? Which would talk about debris size, or so, we already talked about like the grass clippings and the leaves, but maybe nothing smaller than a ½ inch within 30 feet of your home. So you go around, you trim the trees. So there's that program as well. Public education over I'd say the past 10 years has suffered with us. We're so thin right now. The priority is making sure that we have our state mandated inspections. So we're using some of our EMS people to go out and do community events. We get requests quite frequently for some of the elderly facilities to come in and do safety talks for them. But right now, most of that has been on a volunteerism basis. I'd like to applaud. I mean, we have 15 or 20 individuals that they're rock stars. If it wasn't, for them stepping up, I think the city would see a greater impact.
I'm just curious about the summer program. Was 13 the capacity? Like, were there more students interested than you guys could actually engage in that? Or, what's kind of the interest level there?
Yeah, so there's always more. So the first year they did 2 one-month programs.
Mm-hmm.
So what they found was the first program was younger. I want to say like freshmen, sophomores, and I don't want to say the interest. They felt that they didn't have the takeaways that they needed, right? Because what's the purpose? It's not just there, for entertaining them. It's to see if they want to do this for the future. And I think at that age, they just didn't understand where they wanted to go. So with the juniors and seniors, we just had the police just had a promotion ceremony, and 3 of them showed up because they're starting EMT class and they want to get involved now. They truly got that spark from that program. So to your point, we had at least 3 people there helping out with the program, which we did at our Broadway fire station. So our Broadway station, our training room, really only holds 16 people comfortably. It's just a size, we don't have a big enough area to train. And then we would use the apparatus floor. There's also the safety issue too. Like if we have too many people, if they were climbing a ladder or, putting the SCBA on, you almost need a 1-to-1 ratio for that to happen. So to keep them moving forward and not be bored, the class size needs to be small. So why didn't we do 2 months? We have 1 training officer. That training officer, the first year, lost the whole summer, didn't get to go on vacation with his family, and it just became a logistical. So we said, they needed a break as well.
Yes, question?
Long-term plan with Eastern Ave.
So I was just saying, I think Eastern Ave has outlived its usefulness. The outside of the station looks okay, for lack of a better word. The inside, it's just falling apart. So it's probably time to think about doing something, more useful with that station.
Is there any value in putting fire alarm in there? We have in that building in.
cost wise, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer. I don't know that. That's probably a better question for Mike Donovan.
Yeah. Any other questions for the chief?
Sure.
So what keeps you up at night? You know, I mean, that's kind of a loaded question, but I mean, Lynn, and to your point, lots of large scale housing developments spread, you know, in certain areas that may not have optimal fire coverage, you know, down along the Linway and then the downtown, you know, high rise, you know, does that pose any added burden to, you know, have to deal with a 10-story building versus a, you know, 3 or 4-story building?
You must be talking to my wife, because since taking this job, I don't think I've had a full week of staying awake. I mean, staying asleep every night. I guess to your point, it's the wide range of things that I am responsible for, right? For fire response, public education, you know, the youth, the you know, the being a good community partner, getting out and doing this stuff. There's a lot. So your mind is constantly going. To the point of public safety, though, I can't say enough how well trained and passionate our fire service, our people are. You know, they're at an incident, we're well respected throughout the state. You know, all right, so to your point, 2 weeks ago, one of our stations had some building issues, some, you know, structural issues. So we had to relocate the engine and the ambulance for the weekend. And ISD was great in coming in and fixing the problem, at least temporarily, so we could get the apparatus back in there. But our people called on Saturday and said, so we had to move the Highlands. We had to move the engine to Broadway and the ambulance to Western Ave. And you think just that short area from Broadway to the Highlands, and they called and they said, listen, we don't care, you know, about where we stay, but it's just taken us too long to get to our area. Would you mind if we just parked in the parking lot during the day, you know, and then we'll go back, you know, at night, you know, get the apparatus out of the elements and all that stuff. And it showed to me how much they care about the citizens instead of just going with the flow. So I think on the public safety side, I think our people are our best asset. They're there for our citizens. You know, if you go and you watch them operate, you know, like everyone, they might complain here and there when they're in the station, but when they're on scene, the public would never know. You know, they're highly compassionate and give them the best service, I think.
So just a follow up. So you're talking about a lot of stations that are past their useful life, and they're, you know, like they're in the neighborhood where you're going to put another station, like where you're going to build a new station to replace a station that's out of service. And is that something that
Keeps me awake at night.
Engage in, you know, planning with the city? I mean, are those conversations taking place?
Yeah.
We're talking about, you know, we got a plan for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, just
Yeah, and you know
how
what?
that enters into your
To compliment the mayor, he understands that. Without speaking for him right now, we are in those discussions, and he realizes that those are some of the needs of the community, not just the fire service, but for the community. So it's encouraging to be able to work with someone like him on that.
Any other questions for the chief? Hey, Chief Sullivan,
All
thank
right.
you very much. I just want to say, you know, it's, people look at the police chief, the fire chief as, you know, a firefighter, police officer, but you're a manager. And managing, you know, the biggest departments in the city. And I remember last summer, you know, being a Ward 2 council, we had an event at 2 Victory Road, which is an over 55 development, where there was an electrical fire and the building had to be evacuated. And so it was the councilor, I was down there, and then the chief was there, and just watching him interact with these people that are being displaced, you know, going up, talking to each and every one of them and making them feel comfortable. I think that, you know, somebody in your position or somebody in the police chief or in the deputy chief's positions, when you're interacting with people, it's typically at a traumatic time. And how you are as a person and how you engage with them personally, I think means a lot. And I was very impressed that day, you know, watching you interact with those people. And I think that, you know, as residents of Lynn, we're extremely lucky to have, you know, the leadership and the staff in both the police department and the fire department. So thank you for what you do. Deputy Chief Vale, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
We're very lucky to have you. Next month, we're working on having community development come in, talk about the summer youth jobs program, something that's good for businesses, that the costs can be offset through their grants, as well as keeping Lynn kids busy during the summer. So hopefully we can have Rich Avery here and folks on community development. In May, working on having our annual legislative update with representatives and Senator Crichton, what's going on in the state level. And then in June, our government affairs meeting will be the State of the Region address, State of the Region update with Lynn, Nahant, and Swampscott. And if we end up getting Saugus, we will, and then we'll move on into the summer. So, anything else to add? The annual meeting?
On June 21st, we have a breakfast at Pathways.
Yeah,
March 21st, thank you.
Yeah.
And the 28th is our annual meeting. So those are both coming up this month. Again, thank you, Rick, who always does a great job with our government affairs committee. And thank you, Chief. Knowing the Chief for 20 years, I know the dedication he has to the city, to the job, and to becoming a better firefighter, becoming a better leader. He's nationally trained. He trains our firefighters throughout the city and throughout the state. So thank you, Chief, for what you do for the city.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just